A celebration of music and local history will take place on Sunday afternoon as part of the Freedom Rising series. It will be at the Museum of African American History on Beacon Hill, a concert with collaboration from Jazz Boston. The special concert will feature a chamber jazz ensemble called the Imagine Orchestra, and the Dean of Jazz Radio in Boston, Eric Jackson, to tell us about the event is the museum's executive director, Beverly Morgan-Welch. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you, Chris.
First of all, put this in the context of the whole Freedom Rising series at the museum.
Well, we've been working for some time at helping people understand that freedom rises over time, and it's something that we seem to still be working on in this country. But we have both lectures and music and relate it both to the sesquicentennial of the Civil War as well as these 50th anniversaries of the Civil Rights Movement. And so using music to do that is a very special way of sharing the history with people.
Well, one of the other things, and I'm sure Eric Jackson will have a lot to say about this on Sunday, is that we once had a much more robust jazz scene. I think a lot of other cities had a more robust jazz scene at one time as well, but Boston was not an insignificant part of that.
Not at all. I mean, it's an extremely significant part of it. Boston musicians played with greats and were greats themselves. This year there'll be a focus on Roxbury and the places and the musicians from Roxbury, and we'll do a nod to that at the Meeting House on Sunday as well.
Now, I remember one of the things is that it was almost like a concentration, almost like a jazz zone in Boston, roughly from Columbus Avenue to a little beyond Huntington, up along Mass Avenue. So, you know, it was almost like there was a neighborhood for all of this.
Absolutely. When you think about concentrations of communities, the way in which people call Boston tribal, if you will. There are neighborhoods and there are reasons that people are in those neighborhoods, and at a time there's more of a separation. So you have both grocery stores, you have hair establishments, and you have places where music is played. And there is not only the neighborhood comes, but people come from outside of the city to hear it as well.
Of course, the other thing was interesting about some of the jazz clubs in Boston is that these were not just about separation. This was also a place where you had racial mixing that you couldn't find anywhere else.
Exactly. It has been a very important way of people coming together and sharing a common bond and a common experience with music. And it's a nice way of blending the history, because of course the history at the Meeting House is of black and white abolitionists coming together, and music is a part of everything that they do as well.
Talk about the people who are going to be taking part in this. You've got Bill Banfield and the Imagine Orchestra.
Yes, Bill Banfield and Eric Jackson in the same place. It's a pretty heady crowd. He is at Berkeley, and we've wanted to have a continuing relationship with this incredible institution in Boston that has been doing so much in contemporary music and jazz and so on. So it makes all of the sense in the world to bring them together. He is Banfield is a composer. He's a musician. He's an educator. He's been in residence in so many colleges and universities, and written so many important books as well. So he is bringing together both students, some faculty, and musicians in the greater Boston area to both play orchestrated as well as improvised music.
Now, Eric Jackson is practically a household word, but for people who don't know about him, he's been on the radio for years on GBH. He's interviewed people. He knows the music in and out, and he's just wonderful to listen to him.
Exactly. Who would know more than Eric Jackson does about jazz, and especially in Boston? So it's wonderful to have this man whose voice, both the voice that we hear and that we recognize as Eric Jackson's on the radio, and all of the teaching that he's done over the years as he's played these musicians. It's really going to be a wonderful melding of this premier of the Imagine Orchestra with the dean of jazz music.
Well, another figure in this jazz scene in Boston, oddly enough, because he worked at one of the performance venues, was Malcolm X. And you have an event that's related to Malcolm X coming up, too.
Yes, his daughter, Ilyasha Shabazz, will be coming to the museum. Please check maah.org for upcoming events, but she has written 3 books and she will be doing some reading, and you know, this is the time of his 90th birthday and you know, of his tragic assassination. And these are moments when we try to understand someone better, and no one better to hear from than his daughter, and how his life and words have shaped her life.
Coming back to the concert, you know, I think of the Meeting House simply as a church, but you know, churches are places for music. How is the sound in there?
Ah, it's fabulous. The restoration of the space made it beautiful, but it also reminds us of how absolutely fabulous the acoustics are in the space. So in 1806, they knew what they were doing. They built a meeting house where they could not only be heard speaking, but singing and making music as well.
It's practically the only place to hear music, maybe. And the time of this is coming up on Sunday?
It's 4 o'clock on Sunday.
Right. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you.
Beverly Morgan-Welch from the Museum of African American History.